All right. Hey, welcome, listeners, viewers, whoever is taking a look at things this week. Got the old Star Wars hat on because we are here and ready to chat Star Wars on the SWU Report. I've got Alex back with me again this week. So, super excited to have him back. And I swear I'll let him speak in a second. Just want to try to get better about throwing this up there at the start of things. Make sure you like, subscribe, give us a follow, rate us on iTunes, whatever it might be. That really helps a lot. And check out the SWU.report website. That's there's no .com. It's just SWU.report. That'll get you there. That'll show you, articles and everything as well, and the link to the coffee page to support hosting and software. So, all right, let's move past that stuff. Let's let Alex talk. How's it going this week?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. What we're 1 week out from Galactics. I fly out almost exactly 7 days from right now, so I'm excited for it. Meanwhile, up here in the Twin Cities, as I told you a few minutes ago, it is filled with smog. There is smoke coming down from wildfires from the north, and I'm happy to be inside.
Yeah, no, that's good, and I feel kind of bad laughing at that. Consider that a bitter chuckle at the
Yeah.
experience. I do not
What
envy
about
you there.
yeah? What about you, Will? How are you doing?
Not bad here. I mean, I could always use more sleep. I'll tell you, but weather's been pretty good. Honestly, I think it's been a few degrees cooler here for the past week or so than it's been up your way. So
Mhm.
that's impressive considering how much further north you are.
Yeah.
So that said, I guess like like you pointed out, Galactics is just effectively a week away for most folks, or at least when travel is starting on that.
Mhm.
So we wanted to make sure we jumped in and got a pre-Galactics episode out to you all. Um, and I do want to preface this episode with a few caveats, and I'm sure multiple subsections are going to have caveats as we go. But to start with, I want you guys to know this is going to be a numbers heavy episode. If you followed the website, you know I love analyzing that sort of stuff. So that's what we are doing now. So be ready.
I mean, I think it's kind of a given that we are nerds when we're recording about a TCG, but now we get to be an extra level of being nerds because now we get to talk about spreadsheets.
Yes, yes. And who doesn't love spreadsheets? You'd think I'd be tired of them as much as I have to use them at my day job. I work in banking. So, yeah, evidently I'm not.
I mean, I understand. I work on the board game industry side, but it's sales and logistics, and I'm using spreadsheets all the time as well. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially makes sense soon as you say the word logistics.
yep.
Well, cool. So we're going to jump into things. Uh, as far as what the info is that we're talking about this week, let me go ahead and mention stuff. In case you were not aware of this website, I'm going to go ahead and pull it up for just a second here. That's SWU Stats, right? So you can take a look at a variety of stats here. They've been updating the website recently, so they've got a variety of weeks that you can slice things down into. I goofed by flipping those endpoints just now. For week 41 is the start and 40 is the end. Let's flip that. So you can take a look at this info there. Um, some of this info we're talking about at least. So this is tracking games from Karabast. So you do need to kind of lead with that, right? Online play is not exactly the same as in person. These are, essentially best of one matches, best of three kind of changes things some, all that sort of thing. So do make sure you take stuff with a grain of salt. But I want to thank SWU Stats for having an API that we can pull info from, as so that we can track and collate a bunch of this stuff. So I've been pulling info for a variety of weeks. I believe it's week 38 that cards from Ashes were first playable on Karabast. We're up into week 42 currently. So we've got, essentially a month, give or take, of weeks of data that we can work with. So I've been trying to take a look at what's seen kind of the lion's share of play, what those win rates are, and all sorts of things from there. So I've got a couple versions of the first chart that I want to take a look at. And I am going to start with let's call it the expansive one, the top 40, 43 decks, something like that. All trend is what I've got it labeled as here. So I want to zoom in a little bit for you. And that is a chart I've been tracking or put together from what I've tracked that shows the shares of what is being played uh, as the weeks have changed. Now, this is not trying to capture the entire meta. I started off with what was, I think, the 20 most played decks. And that has not been exactly the same from week to week as different decks have gone up or down. So I think by the end of this, I'm at 42 or 43 decks, that sort of thing. So you can see with the whole thing, this does get a little tricky to read, especially for us talking about it on the show. I feel like that's a lot to cover. So, unless Alex is dying to point out anything from the full list, like talking about how, I don't know, Yularen Red is really kind of flatlined down here, then I may switch to the more constrained version of this chart. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, there's things we could talk about, but I think you're going to get most of that in the constraint chart as well. So
Okay, so let's take a look at that. Then here we go, top 12. So I did up another version here that is only top 12 through week 42. So these are the 12 most represented decks. That's not necessarily winningest or anything like that. This is just their share of the Karabast meta, how much they are being played as of week 42. And you can see if you follow these back there in the trends, some of these decks, like let's see, what's the kind of gray one here? Kranich Yellow started off in week 38. I do not think this would have been in the top 12 by any means, but it has really come up as time has gone. Or as you may notice here, the big red line far above everything else in starting point, even at its lowest point, well above everything except looks like Ezra Yellow, and then has trended back upward to keep that same kind of spread above the entire rest of the pack.
yeah, I mean, it's not surprising, right? We've been, it's what we've said previously. It's what we've seen consistently is people feel like Cad is good. People have felt like Cad is good since the moment he arrived, and regardless of what his win rate is compared to other leaders, um, we're just seeing him be played. People are expecting him to be played. Uh, I've compared it to Han 2 going into Galactics last year, right? People were just talking about Han 2 being present a lot. The difference is Cad is a new leader while Han was an old leader. Um,
Yeah.
so it is interesting to see it's such a high percentage.
Yeah, it's wild. At least in comparison. I mean, if you're looking at the figures over here to the side, Cad is just kind of hanging out over 10%. It looks like he's on trajectories, probably at about 11 there. That looks like um, of the whole meta. So there's still a pretty wide spread compared to some other points of time where we've seen. Larger slices for other decks,
Hmm.
even say in the law meta, like Boba, for instance, at one point. Um, but it's pretty stark compared to everything else. I do
Hmm.
find it particularly interesting that that one point in week 39, Cad's lowest point was also Ezra's highest. They really were an inversion there, but he has just fallen kind of almost off the map after that. Looks like he spiked probably around 7%, and he's dropped now about 3.5, kind of
Hmm.
guessing there. Um, yeah. Also related to that, I do find Mando Colossus rise here. I think
Hmm.
obviously folks seem to have not been nearly as excited with it starting out in week 38, extremely low compared to their high excitement for Cad. But he's had a pretty steady rise ever since then for a pretty heavy controlling build there as far as my experience with it. um, I think I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Maybe. Oh, go ahead.
my understanding was essentially no one had quite like publicly cracked like a good version of Mando, and then someone posted, and I'm sorry, I don't know who, but someone posted the control deck
Mhm.
online, and that kind of went public, and people saw that and were like, oh yeah, this is a control deck we like.
Yeah, yeah. I've definitely been hearing just from chatting with people, several folks that honestly are liking this version of the Mando Colossus control more than they liked the Dedra Colossus.
Hmm.
They feel like it's even smoother to offset the Colossus drawback there.
Hmm. It's actually, looking at this, Dedra isn't even on the list, right? So uh,
Yeah,
the top control deck of set seven is not even being played in the majority of games right now.
yeah. It really seems, as far as the overlap in concept here, Mando Colossus and Cad Bane pretty much completely cover um, red blue control. Have squished everything else out of the top
Mhm.
12 here.
Actually, that's an interesting. With that, the only leaders, so the first leader who is a not new leader in the top 12, it looks like Poe. Um, and then we have Boba, Luke, and
Krennic is
oh, right,
a
sorry,
little
Krennic.
later.
Yes,
He's
yes,
not an Ash
yes,
leader, at least. Yeah,
correct. Yeah. So yeah, so Poe, Krennic, and then so the bottom half, but the top half is essentially only new leaders.
yeah. True, true. And I meant to fix the labels on here. You can see um, the parentheses were initially the subtitles. So this Luke is "I can save him." That Thrawn is "How unfortunate." I meant to come back and label everything with set labels. I think I've fixed most everything else. So that's "I can save him" is the Ash Luke, and
Mhm.
that Thrawn is the JTL Thrawn, I believe, right?
That sounds correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, out of the top 12, we're looking at what, one, two, um, three, four. Only four of them are non-Ash leaders.
Hmm.
So I think that's worth noting and kind of thinking about, that the Karabast meta can still be driven by a lot of excitement. Now, at Galactics, how much does that change? That's an open question. I don't know. There are certainly competitive players, or competitive minded, at least, that are kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, as I like to say, on Karabast right now, that
Mhm.
are going to go with something much more proven when it comes to Galactics. On the other hand, Galactics is such a large event that you, just by virtue of its size, are almost certain to have some players and decks that are there that are, um, let's say, outside the norm, that are
Mhm.
players that have a pet deck, that have their their Akbar data vaults, or whatever, that they really just want to keep hammering at. So um, I feel like it's tough to make predictions there, um, but we're sure going to try in a little bit.
Um, yeah, no, it is absolutely tough. We could talk about all the mitigating factors, right? So there's a reason Galactics happens at the start of a new set, right? They want there to be new information going in, so Galactics isn't happening once the meta is kind of set for the new set. That's the same word.
Yeah,
But at the same time, in this case, because of the leak, we've had the cards for this set longer than FFG intended. Um, at the same time, the set is releasing so new. It was the pre-release was last weekend. I think tomorrow is technically the release date.
yeah, I
Um,
think so.
so the availability of cards and things like that could also just impact what people are playing. So there's a lot of different factors going in there.
Oh yeah. Well, as far as some of those factors go, then you think there's anything else at the moment that we want to examine here on the top 12 trend chart, or should we take a look at some of the other ways we can slice some of this data?
Let's go look at some other information. I think that's
Okay.
going to tell us more about maybe why this is what it is, or maybe why we shouldn't pay as much attention to this.
No, I think that's a good point. There is one chart that I think I'll want to come back to in a minute as we go. But for the moment, let's pop open the spreadsheet, I
Hmm.
think. And I'm gonna head to the Cad Bane counters tab before we get too hard into anything else, because that trend chart makes it so obvious that Cad and particularly Cad Bane Blue, um, is far and away the most popular deck right now.
Hmm.
So I've got that pulled up. You'll see if you're taking a look at this. We've got a column for the opponent deck. We've got a column for that deck's win rate versus blue 30, and then that win rate versus yellow 30. When I started this a couple weeks ago, Cad Yellow, I think, was also on a bit of an uptrend. Clearly less popular than blue, but looked like it might form into a thing, and it has dropped pretty steeply since then. We can get to that in a little bit if we want. Uh, so that may be less of a consideration now than when I first started tallying this, but I think it's still useful to have a peek at decks that are taking both of them. And if you're looking at the color coding here, obviously green, and the brighter the green, the more that deck beats Cad. Similarly, with say yellow into pink to red, the deck is doing a little worse against Cad. And if something's in gray or white, it means, yeah, we've got some like records of games on those, but not enough to feel confident in the total win rate. It's maybe like 10 games or something. So um,
Hmm.
these are much better the more aggregate we've got, especially when we consider these are best of one. The more of those you get, the closer in theory it should come to sorting out how best of three plays out.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
anything you want to jump on here, or should I mention a few that stand out to me?
Well, so the first thing I want to do is thinking back to their previous chart, right? So we saw the top two leaders currently, um, other than Cad Bane being played, are Ahsoka and the Mandalorian, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Uh, and so the Mandalorian um, has actually positive, just barely positive against versus Blue, but a extra 5 points against Yellow.
Hmm.
And similarly, Ahsoka only has a 42.5 against Blue, but a 61% against Yellow, which maybe explains why Yellow fell off. If people playing Yellow were quickly seeing, well, we're just losing to this, these Ahsoka aggro decks.
That's true. And if I may flip back to the top 12 trend for a moment again to show the listeners, Ahsoka here in orange, you can see she's had quite the curve, and with the last few weeks, has really seen a spike pretty hard, especially from week 41 to 42. So yeah, I think you're onto something that she maybe is scaring people off of Cad Yellow.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd say those are the first two things. The other one is maybe just to note that as popular as Cad Bane is, there are 14 leaders who are no 15. Oh, let me take the two Jabas off. So 13.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So 13 with good, decent data that are at least 50-50 against him.
Hmm.
So it's not like you know, Django Fett situation where he is actually owning the field and there's only one or two decks with a positive like rate against him.
Right, right. And honestly, if we take a look at a lot of those decks that are doing well against him, there are a few that are maybe a little more surprising than others, but there's also a bunch on them that are kind of a known quantity, shall we say, things that have been in the meta that have proven themselves that people are familiar with. So it's not like you have to play like a rogue deck to get these kind of win rates against Cad. I mean, what we've got Luke, so the JTL Luke, Pilot Luke, Data
Mm-hmm.
Vault running greater than 60% positive against both flavors of Cad. You've got Boba Lake Country running, 59.2,
Mm-hmm.
almost hitting 60% versus Blue, and geez, almost 70%. He's at 68.8 versus
Mm-hmm.
Yellow. Or Vader is also just shy of 60 against both. So
Mm-hmm.
that's Vader JTL Yellow. Um, I mean, and those decks, I think, um, also potentially prove that CAD is maybe not looking to be as oppressive as say your Boba reference.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it would maybe be really dominating some of these established decks.
Do you think there is an element here where many of these decks that are doing the best against CAD are pilot decks or space decks in general?
I think that is a very good possibility. Yes, um, I think at least from my experience, some heavy kind of space aggro stuff, and just throwing that
Mm-hmm.
out there. Another one with positive rates against both is Piet Red.
Mm-hmm.
Also, obviously, heavy
Mm-hmm.
space due to the whole capital ship thing. Um, so yeah, I think that's a real kind of concern for folks looking at playing CAD, or an opportunity for folks looking to
Mm-hmm.
skirt around CAD.
Yeah, like just looking at this, if I were going to play CAD, one thought would be maybe I put my anti-space aggro sideboard, I put some of that in my main deck, even if I have
Yes,
to resource it half the time because it's not useful. If this is one of my biggest threats, I would rather have a slightly better chance of winning game one.
agreed. I think that's a very reasonable call, and particularly, right, you get into some interesting kind of head games sort of things. We don't have a ton of listeners yet, though I hope this type of analysis is going to get out in front of some new people. But
Mhm.
even us or some other shows, creators, whatever, talking about stuff, or people examining these stats on their own, what does that do to the kind of the rock paper scissorsy sort of concept here, the bluff and double bluff, right?
Mm-hmm.
The if folks are looking at this and agree with this pilot projection we make, that we're kind of suggesting here,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, it sounds like a much better idea for CAD to main deck that anti-space stuff. But on the other hand, if folks have that same line of thought and reach that, does that then convince potential pilot players to say, well, you know what? What if I go ahead and take that to the next step and I skip the pilot and move to something else?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Man, see, this is why true predictions here are so tricky to make, but I love it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's an interesting deck building piece too, right? So when you're building a sideboard, you're trying to have the different largest threats to your deck and have something to attack against them to increase your odds of beating those threats. Um, and when you're building a deck, in general, you're tuning it one way or another. I often play mid range, so I'm often thinking about, am I tuning more against aggro or tuning more against control?
Yeah.
Um, and that can kind of shift depending on what the meta is doing, right? So when you have Sabine ECL is everywhere, you probably want to attack against aggro because you want to just be able to win those games.
Hmm.
But that's not always the case. And so it is a lot of it is a personal choice of what your balance level is. You should have some solutions in your deck, but what level, you know, how much are you afraid about getting, you know, the wrong card stuck in your hand, having a bad mulligan or whatever. It's yeah, there's not one easy answer, is what I would say.
True. No, I agree. Um, let's see what else. Trying to think of a few other things we might take a look at while we're here.
Hmm.
If I refer back to the top 12 sheet again, so Ahsoka has really shot up, and then Grief Red is the fourth deck there. So let's maybe double check how those are doing against CAD. So Ahsoka Blue and Grief Red. I see
Hmm.
Grief Red here on line 20. Very favorable, about 60% against Yellow, but running under 50% against Cad Blue, obviously the much more
Hmm.
favorable, or much more populous version. Where's our
Uh,
Ahsoka?
right below that on 23.
There we go, 23. So that puts, yeah, gosh, still both of the more aggro looking decks out of kind of our top four. Then
Hmm.
both pretty favorable against yellow.
Hmm.
They seem to be able to put on the pressure to get through that, but both sitting, noticeably in the red against Cad Blue.
Hmm.
Does that worry you? Do you think that scares you off of potentially playing one of the newer aggro decks?
It doesn't surprise me with those decks. I suspect they do. Like if and we could go look at that data, but I suspect they both are going to do better against the control against the Mando Colossus, um, in our kind of our rock paper scissors, right? So it's hard to say. I'm always hesitant about a one trick pony aggro deck anyway for myself. My personal play style, I like to be able to react to things.
Hmm.
Like I understand there is a simplicity to playing, Vader yellow and just here is your system. You do your system. Either it works or your opponent interrupts it. Um, but that's generally less exciting for me. And so I think that would be my response is like in my play style, I would avoid these decks.
Yeah, I can see that. There's definitely something to be said for having flexibility, maybe with your own deck, and in
Hmm.
general, that has been my philosophy in other games. Right, I like that flexibility, that ability to react to what's going on. SWU has been kind of a weird one for me in that the best performances I've had with well, I was about to say recent, but at this point it's been a couple months back. Both our PQ locally here with Vader Yellow and a PQ sized tourney we had during the first year with a Leia red deck have been pretty linear aggressive strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So just on kind of a personal level there, I find myself pretty conflicted these days. I like the theory, the concept of what you're saying. That's what I'm drawn to, but there's still something that about kind of the rule system or the pacing of SWU that
Mm-hmm.
seems to keep pulling aggressive stuff up whenever performance really counts. And I don't think that's necessarily just a me thing.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back at you know the prior competitive season, I think we saw that coming out in a lot of places as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true to some extent. Though we do have things like our our Akbars and our Dietrich Colossus did perform well the second half of last season, um, and even Lando Lake Country was more of a mid range. It was a a different style of mid range than
True.
say your blue red heroism, but it wasn't specifically just an aggro deck.
No, I could see that. And you mentioning Colossus again did make me think of something else. Admittedly, this is a little sideline from this particular topic because I want to direct it back towards some of the data that we've got.
Right.
So, you had mentioned Ahsoka and Grief, and your kind of curiosity about how they do against Mando Colossus. So,
Mhm.
what if we flip over to the full matchup matrix? Like this tab, the Cad Bane counters, I pulled out the info separately so we could have a quick cheat sheet since I think it is very likely that Cad remains the most populous deck at Galactics. But
Mhm.
for all of the decks that we've been considering here, I did actually pull a matchup matrix or a heat map on all of them. Listeners, viewers, we are not going to try to go through every single one of these by any means. That's a lot to do, but let's see at least if we can cross reference. I'm gonna control F to find. There's Grief Red 30, and Mando Colossus is our first column. So he's at 51%, just barely
Mhm.
positive. I would say, that is a coin flip there.
Mhm.
What have we got for Ahsoka? Um, Ahsoka Blue. Oh, look
Mhm.
at that though. 72%. Very, very positive against Mando Colossus. What do you think about that?
I mean, if I had to guess, it is partially that Ahsoka is doing more of the ground aggro thing. I mean, she's doing ground in space, but uh, I think that does look like a Mando got more popular, and as a result, Ahsoka got more popular. Right?
Yeah.
It's and if someone wants a more aggro deck that doesn't feel as much like the pilots, then she's a good option to go with.
Yeah. No, I think so. And I think it's interesting you mentioned the ground and space sort of thing with
Mhm.
Ahsoka because as fun as Mando Colossus is, it's got a lot of interesting stuff to go with it. I do think there's a potential. I don't want to call it a hole compared to the some of the villainy options, but there are some real trade-offs made in going this direction that you lose access to two of the biggest early game sentinels that Ash just added. The was it the Imperial Armored Commando, the 4/3
Mhm.
shielded one,
Mhm.
and Marok. Unless I guess you want to pay two extra for both of those. And well, now they're not
Mhm.
so early game anymore. But I think that. There are still definitely some other Sentinel options, but losing two of the best new ones, I think definitely offers an opening to some of these aggressive decks.
Mm. And there's some decent blue sentinels, but you're also losing, your green sentinels because you're going blue red, right? So, um, uh, Captain Typho, one of the best heroism sentinels in the game, is also not available to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
True.
sure, it is only good if you're a force deck, and you're not a force deck. So, I mean, he's fine otherwise, but he's slightly behind curve.
Right.
So, yeah, you just don't have the same, ground sentinel solution. So you're looking to control the game more via other means than just slowing down the ground.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
It is interesting looking at Ahsoka's overall trend here. Not to break down everyone, but just to, like, since we're talking about her specifically,
Yeah.
seems like it's a good example as any to when you're thinking about your matchup. She's a good one to look at here because, okay, she does not do great against Cad Blue,
Yeah.
but she's fine against Cad Yellow. She's great against Mando. Um, it looks like she's doing pretty well against Krennic and Piet, right, and Deidre. So it's really the ones she's struggling against. It looks like are mostly Cad Bane, but then also then mostly yellow leaders. It looks like, or pilots.
Yeah. Yeah. I see. She's looking pretty rough against Vader Yellow,
Mhm.
Luke, JTL, Datavolt, definitely. One that doesn't necessarily fit in that category, I notice she's looking real rough against R. Singh, Datavolt.
Oh,
But
that's interesting.
that's kind of a question here is how much Ara Singh will actually show up. She's a
Hmm.
little bit of an older leader at this point, does not have kind of some of the same either excitement push from being from
Hmm.
ashes, or the overall kind of performance push from past history. I mean, she's been a good deck,
Hmm.
right? But
Right.
not to the level of, say, a Boba Lake Country or a Lando Lake Country or something where it's
Hmm.
super on people's minds.
Right.
So, that's worth thinking about as well when you do look for these weak spots is, well, how often do you think you're really going to run into those weak spots, right?
Yeah, and Aura just has a special. Her leader ability happens to be really good against the blue green heroism um, multicolor cards. So both
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Han, the Lepi Lookout, and Lots Razi. Lot, you can make her a 3/2 instead of a 2/1 shielded, but all three of those are at risk of Aura just one shotting them.
Hmm.
And so that just I think makes what Ahsoka is doing just that much harder, especially when we're looking at best of ones, right? Like she might be able to sideboard those units out for something else, but essentially suddenly you don't have those turn one plays.
Agreed. Agreed. That's a huge point. Um, and kind of an interesting as well. Some of those one health units in theory sound better against, say, CAD, who can't target
Mhm.
them at all.
Right.
But it does not necessarily seem like that's panning out, at least against the blue version.
Hmm. But yeah, so it's but any deck, like you look at any deck here, and they all have weaknesses, right?
Oh yeah,
Every deck has someone that they lose against.
yeah.
Um,
No one is just green across the board. I mean, there are several here that look pretty solid though. Poe Data Vault, right? Not a deck I
mhm.
have deep experience with, but just for another example's sake, looking across there, like it's got positive numbers
Mhm.
against a lot of things. The problem is the things it is running negative against are a lot of decks I expect there to be a good number of. It's running negative into Cad Blue. It's running negative into JTL Luke Datavolt. Negative into Piet Blue.
Mhm.
Negative into the Ahsoka Blue. Like that's. that's definitely another good example, I think, of well, how often do you expect to run into the decks that are your weak points?
Mhm.
I think Poe stands a pretty good chance of it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that would be another interesting way of looking at if you're like trying to figure out a deck to play is what plays well against Mando, Cad Bane, and Ahsoka when we think those are the three that like are being the most played, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and sort of that kind of brings you back to your Vader, Pilot Vader. Have
Honestly, yeah.
56 against Mando, 58 against Cad Blue, and 64 against Ahsoka.
Those are pretty good. I like that. He looks what negative into Poe, which has its issues that we just said.
Hmm.
Very negative into JTL Luke, which is a carryover from the Law era. It was pretty similar back then too.
Yep.
Um, Negative into Aura Singh, which again we expect.
Hmm.
Slightly negative into Boba Lake Country. How much of a boost back up at a truly competitive event do we see in Boba Lake Country? He turned up in that top 12 trend chart we were looking at. I'm going to
Hmm.
flip back up to that. But you know, he's had a kind of a slow swing up to being in, third or fourth place, but has really
Hmm.
dropped off this past week.
Hmm.
So, what happens there? I'm not sure, but Vader
Hmm.
Yellow does look pretty tasty.
Yeah. I've already said it's not a deck I want to play, but it looks like a really solid deck for this meta.
Yeah. Well, we've been kind of looking at the heat map for a while, and I know before recording the episode that I
Hmm.
mentioned that might be overwhelming to try to do for too long
Hmm.
looking at that. Is there anything else specifically you want to hit on the heat map while we're here, or do would it maybe be good to flip to the Galactics Outlook tab and get I think maybe there's kind of a generalized stat here on the Galactics
Hmm.
Outlook that might be easier for us to work with and talk about
Yeah,
for a little
I
bit.
agree. This is um, and now. Are you going to be sharing this spreadsheet with the video, like a link to the spreadsheet, so people can come look at it themselves?
Oh, I probably should do that. Yes. Yep.
Because that's the sort of thing where people, if people really want to know, they can dive down into the heat map and really look at it themselves that way for the leaders they're looking at.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a great idea. I was already thinking about trying to get an article written up in time.
Hmm.
Historically, I've been trying if I'm doing an article and an episode about something, I try to put the
Hmm.
article out first.
Hmm.
Um, so we'll see if I can scare up the time for that as well. But if not, then at a minimum, yes, I will. Well, this is already up on OneDrive, so I can link to it, and we'll
Hmm.
go from there.
Okay, perfect. So then, yeah, let's go look at the Galactics Outlook.
Yeah. So the thing I wanted to point out, and really it's kind of two columns here. We can get into some of the other notes here, but the things I wanted to point out right now, carrying over from the Matrix, is that we've got a column here for current win rate versus field and overall win rate. So overall, that's pretty straightforward. That's truly just its average win rate. Then we've got current win rate versus field, which in this case, field is just these other decks that we're tracking.
Hmm.
So in theory, this is its win rate against the stuff that you are actually most likely to be playing against. So I think this is probably the better one to be working with to deal with. This is essentially the average of the matchup matrix. This gives you the super quick snapshot of how it's doing, across the lines that we were
Hmm.
just looking at.
Hmm.
And I think slicing it this way reveals some other very interesting stuff. For instance, Lando Lake Country remains an incredibly winning deck overall and against the field, both at over
Hmm.
60%. And I
Yeah.
also threw in for any decks that had law info, the APR it ended the season on, the combined APR. And
Hmm.
if we know from that that it had extremely kind of overperforming presence there.
Right.
This still just looks like it should be a huge top pick, but man,
Mhm.
look at the play percentages on Karabast right now. I mean, I guess maybe it creeped up a little from week 41 to 42, but we're still under 1%.
Mhm.
Um, what is going on here?
I mean, that's an interesting question, right? Like, is it just not new and therefore not exciting? Are there, serious teams that are avoiding playing it on Carabas because they want to keep their play more private and surprise people by having a Lando deck? Like, there's so many possibilities there.
That's true. That is true. Folks might have already kind of decided to roll with it, and now they're just playing whatever else for at least public facing on Carabast.
Hmm.
Um, that's another difficulty with pulling and crunching these numbers, where team behavior can potentially skew things as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, we've got several things here. Of course, week 42 is going to show you our current shares for everything, and we've got a call column here for kind of the top picks or stuff that's too new. I know Yularian Red Splash is not like new in concept. That just means its stats are too new. Like there's
Hmm.
not much data about it played right now.
Hmm.
Um, or proven anchor decks that have performed historically well, continue to perform well, continue to have a reasonable share of the meta. Cad Cad Blue at our only overplayed candidate here, and several developing decks labeled that seem to be building steam, and quite a few fades that are really dropping off as we go, and a single trap that seems to be Krennic Yellow, played here at nearly 4%, a surprisingly high amount out of the Karabast meta right now. Week
Hmm.
42, 3.81, but it had a very negative APR last
Hmm.
season. It has a very negative win rate versus the field. I mean, against just general rando opponents, you're sitting about 50%. So that might be, deluding some folks. But
Hmm.
if you're if you're trying to play it against the other decks, you're likely to see as Swiss kind of narrows down the field. Um, yeah, it's looking rough. It is looking rough.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Like, what is, and I see here it's been a growth, right? It was 0.63%, 0.88%, and then suddenly jumped to 2.98%.
Yeah,
So that must have been a deck that someone posted. I'm guessing that's.
very very possibly. I suppose we could pop back over to the Matrix,
Mhm.
and whoops, try my search again if I can type. What am I? There we go. Krennic. Where are you? Okay. We want Krennic Yellow. Here we go. He's on line 10.
Mhm.
He's running, right at 50% into Mando Colossus, more specifically, negative into Lando Lake Country, very
Mhm.
negative into Cad Blue, very negative into Luke JTL.
Oh man, look at
Um,
that,
Gosh,
25% against Podata Vault.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
he's running really negative into a lot of the specific, really likely candidates. The ones he's doing well against, 73% really well against Cad Yellow, but that's on a dive right now. Maybe the Krennic Yellow is pushing some of the Cad Yellow down. Maybe that's the intersection that's kind of pushing the two of them right now.
Hmm.
Or the new Ashes Luke Data Vault deck.
Hmm.
Krennic's also looking very positive at 69%. Or Ezra Yellow, and I know I mentioned before that Ezra Yellow has kind of moved downward in the past few weeks. Yeah, huh.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, I don't know if there's a clear argument there. If maybe this Krennic Yellow was really beating, say, Mando and Vader or something like that,
Hmm.
just for example's sake, but was losing into Cad Blue, then maybe I could see what is still pushing a pretty significant share of the field to play it. But
Hmm.
I'm not sure what's pushing that right now.
Yeah. I mean, are there leaders you think, like looking at this Galactics outlook, that are being severely underplayed?
Severely underplayed. I will admit, when you throw the word severely in there, that I
That's
immediately
fair.
think, oh, they're probably below the cutoff of what I was even trying to deal with. Because
Hmm.
there are umpteen various combinations of leaders and
Right.
base to track here available in the game. So I've written off a pretty significant portion of things. In fact, um,
Mhm.
I did add this column at the bottom right before we recorded, so you could kind of get a peek of things. At week 38, the ones that I was tracking, there was a really wide spread then. Because again,
Mhm.
I started trying to track about the top 20, I think, decks. Um, and that only covered about 59-ish% of the whole meta of all games played. You can
Mhm.
see the field here has consolidated. Now, obviously, I've also added more decks. We're now covering 43 or whatever. Now we're,
Mhm.
we're covering about 82% of the entire meta, but that's still leaves about 18 unaccounted for here. Um,
Mhm.
and I always think it's possible for there to be a surprise to come out of that field.
Right.
I will float an idea out of that portion of things that several of us, when Ashes first dropped, thought we had a very promising um, Armorer Red deck that I
Mhm.
still really like. I don't think it has panned out in the end, particularly with Cad continuing to climb. It's really hard to capitalize on the shields that was able to capitalize on early in the Ash meta. So, you know, if there's someone I really think it is being uh, overlooked in a general sense, I think it is
Mhm.
the armorer. I would not be surprised to see one come out and do better than anticipated here. I just worry about it in this specific scenario.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Or on the other hand, if you want to limit to just the decks we've been tracking here, some
Mhm.
of the stuff kind of at that lower end, I think I would maybe throw some love to Shin Hati Red. Obviously she's not looking too great in numbers right now. Pretty flat. Not much
Mhm.
of a boost in presence, not a great win rate against either the field or in general. But I just like her. We know some aggressive strategies can get there. I keep wondering if there's a version to crack
Mhm.
that could reverse some of these. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, I could see that. Right, yeah. So definitely, like Shin feels like there's potential there. Um, I mean, I'm curious about this Java, the last two, Java Colossus and Java Blue, right? Like there's
Yeah.
um, just no data there, but Java's a really interesting leader, and it feels like there could be something there that just no one has cracked in a meaningful way. Um, in some ways, similar to how like Admiral Akbar did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, there's an obvious one at the top of the field. I feel like I have seen no chatter whatsoever about Kylo. Um,
Yeah.
and yet he's one of the best performing leaders on this list. And, he has what he's 0.36% for week 42.
Yeah. Agreed. That Kylo, I think, is a very interesting one. I mean, he's still not, a huge portion of the field, and seems to be on a downswing here. His trajectory is moving downward to below 0.5% now.
Hmm.
um, but he's got great win rates, really, against overall and against the field. Admittedly, um, his adjusted performance rate in the law meta is, I think, significantly negative. That definitely shows he underperformed there.
Hmm.
But signs here look positive right now.
Right. So
Yeah.
going and peeking at the matchup matrix, two of his worst matchups though are Mando Colossus and Ahsoka Blue. So that might have to do.
Oh, yeah. Oof. Yeah. And very, very negative in Mando Colossus at 36. And what else did you point out?
Ahsoka Blue is also
Oof.
36.
Yeah. Well, and only 40 into Vader.
Hmm.
Those are three pretty noticeable suspects that he's very negative into, while being, look at the rest of that line, being very green against so many of these other decks.
Right. I mean, 64% against Cad Blue, 63% against Cad Yellow, right? So if you can avoid the Mandos and Ahsokas, you could really run away with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow! And look at that. We were just talking about Krennic Yellow. Look at how bad he crushes Krennic Yellow. 83%.
Yeah.
Wow. And
You know,
and the Ashes Luke data vault. It looks like Kylo is crushing some of these slower decks that don't have blue removal available, I guess.
hmm.
Yeah. Hmm. I mean, Luke should, you would think. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I was too
I mean,
focused thinking about Krennic Yellow, but
yeah. I mean, I feel like that is actually a pretty good place to maybe go talk about some predictions for
yeah,
Galactics
yeah,
because what this is. These percentages are not weighted, but then when you bring in your predictions, that offers some weight into.
yeah. So I tried to really go out here for some Galactics projections, and just for a moment, I'm looking at the spreadsheet, and then we'll switch to some donut charts that make it a little maybe quicker to grasp. So basically, you know what, actually I'm showing that, and I realize it's given away the top 8 stuff already. That's the downside, so I'm going to go straight to the donut for day 1. Okay, so here we go, guys. Let me zoom in, make that text and all a little bigger for you. So okay, what we've done is um, tried to take the recent trajectory of decks and their current meta share, um, to try to make some guesses for what the field is going to look like. And obviously, I meant to make this, explainer early, but obviously, this everything we're talking about is just the premiere portion of things. They've changed things up with Galactics now having a limited portion at the beginning of both day 1 and day 2. So we're not going to try to analyze that. All of this is premiere only. So this is trying to grasp that current trajectory, um, times their current play rate, basically, the abbreviated version. So not, and then as a portion of the full 100%. So not all of these are going to match exactly what week 42 had. This is a guess at where things look at the beginning of day one to start things out.
Would you
Um,
say this is also a decent estimate for the LCQ at the same time?
I think there's a good chance that it is for the LCQ, and honestly, maybe better for the last chance qualifier than for day one. There is um, the possibility that folks hang loose on their final deck decision while the qualifier is going, and try to make a final call based on those results. What final
Mhm.
deck submissions are due 8 p.m. that night, I think it was.
Right. So
Um,
they should at least be most of the way through the qualifier by the time.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think most of these maybe are probably not a huge surprise. Let's say the top four of them are the same top four we were talking about it on the trends, with some slight differences on percentages. I think CAD backs off just a smidge to start out, down
Hmm.
to just over 10. I think Ahsoka continues to rise.
Hmm.
Mando Colossus continues to rise. Grief Data Vault, I think this was also a slight rise. Then we get into Krennic, who, as we were talking about, is surprisingly kind of overplayed right now and seems to
Hmm.
have this upward trajectory. Um, gosh, this was just kind of raw number calculation, not so much my kind of personal guess. So I worry that his number is going to collapse and not match that, but we'll see.
Hmm.
What does anything jump out at you taking a look at some of these slices, or is this
Yeah.
pretty close to what we were just looking at? So
Yeah. This is pretty close to what we were looking at, but I mean, just take the moment to think about that. If this is pretty accurate to the meta, what a healthy meta,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like to have maybe one leader taking 10% of the field,
yeah. No, I think
and
that's a good spread, really.
mhm.
Okay. Well, in that case, is it maybe more exciting to flip ahead and see what day two looks like?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the day two donut. Let's zoom that in here. Okay, so this one is where it gets a little more interesting, right? You're going to be weeding out certain decks that perform poorly. So this leans heavily on the win rate versus field. So essentially, these percentages are going to raise based on kind of the odds that that deck wins against our other tracked decks. So the
Hmm.
decks that are doing really well continue to raise a share as they do well against these other decks. So here things I think reshuffle a little bit, right?
Hmm.
You can see some interesting stuff like CAD doesn't quite double here, but he moves up a lot,
Hmm.
eats up a lot of share here to about 17%. I mean, he has a very respectable win rate. Ahsoka and Grief Data Vault kind of stay in, relatively speaking, second and third place here. Mando
Well,
Colossus drops a bit. Man, the Krennic yellow just
just gone.
completely evaporates,
Yeah.
which that kind of tracks from what we were looking at.
Hmm.
Um, Anything jumping out at you here?
We were talking about Vader. Vader
Mm.
goes from 2% to 4%, so doubles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that's very very likely. Definitely worth pointing out. Um, Luke Data Vault here also. raised some share. I think not as dramatically. What was it, like 1.8 or something on the
Oh no, I
day
think
one?
are we swapping from Luke Ash to JTL here? Because I think
Oh,
Luke Ash was the one in that
whoops.
place before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. Luke Ash was what I had seen over on that side. So you know what? Let me snap the two donuts next to each other. That'll make it a little bit easier. Sorry, listeners, that I can't see all of the or viewers, I can't see all of the labels all at the same time. Um, but yeah, that is a good point. So the Luke that we could see in a reasonable portion of the day one field here on the right um, is Ash, and then we have Luke JTL really climb upward to be in our top what is this, top dozen or so decks
Hmm.
that the pie chart shows. um, yeah, that's a great observation.
Yeah, that's. I mean, so looking at this, I mean, first of all, like don't play don't play Krennic, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
first thing. Like Krennic is gone.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, Mandalorian. Like based on this, Mandalorian looks like he may really underperform compared to his percentage right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so he starts off at about 7% of the field, and day
Hmm.
two predicts him down to about 4.5.
Hmm.
So that's tough. I think it's
Um,
also maybe worth looking at. I've heard it just chatter from folks lately, really taking a look at Thrawn again lately, JTL Thrawn.
hmm.
And we can see him here projected at 4% on day one. But unless I missed something, okay, there we go. He is still in day two's count, but drops down to 2.8. So pretty
Hmm.
noticeable drop there as he goes.
Yeah. Let's see what else. I mean, part of it is the spreadsheet you had that Cad Bane is maybe overplayed, but yeah, we come over here and we see him like almost doubling his percentage in day two.
Yeah,
So maybe he's not overplayed.
yeah. Maybe he's not, but I mean, I guess the thought is, can you find a deck that performs um, well enough against him that also performs well against the rest of the field, because there's going to be so much of him that you're likely to run into.
Hmm.
So a lot of these player choices, and of course,
Hmm.
we'd be remiss to not mention just random pairings can. Uh,
Hmm.
obviously, folks can have good or bad days,
Right.
so this is hard to account for that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but
You
yeah,
know.
he's maybe overplayed,
Hmm.
um, in the sense that gives an opening to
Hmm.
other folks to
Right.
know to target him. And again, this is best of one games.
Hmm.
How much does a sideboard change some of this math too?
Right. The other thing I'm noticing with this current prediction model is that the other oftentimes you will have a big spread of other decks day one, but once you get the cutoff, those mostly evaporate, right? So um, this is a sort of thing. This is why when Akbar won the regional, it was notable. It was the only Akbar deck in day one. It made it to day two and then it won, right? Like
Hmm.
oftentimes most of the decks, those one-off decks, most of them don't make it to day two, and your field, your other decks are a lot smaller percentage in day two. With this estimate, we're still saying 31.9%.
Yeah, and as you point that out, I think that is a clear weakness to kind of these initial projections,
Mm-hmm.
being a uh, relatively kind of flat work off of. Okay, trying to think how to explain this succinctly. Okay, so this was essentially done off of just the 40-ish decks that I've actually tracked stats on, and
Mhm.
everything else is just kind of a lump.
Mhm.
So, as you rightly pointed out, the stuff in that lump does tend to have a pretty poor win rate, pretty poor performance rate as you move through stages of a tournament. Um, and this does not account for that. It just
Mhm.
kind of leaves this extra hole there of we can't really see this, so it's still there. Um,
Mhm.
so that is definitely a weakness that now that you pointed out, I probably should have tried to find a way to account for more. Um, in the this untracked share, the other share is almost certainly going to shrink much more than this shows.
That's fair. I mean, in your defense, this is still spreadsheets and predictions you're making in your free time. This is not your day job. Uh, the fact that you have done all of this is already impressive. So we'll give you a pass on
This time.
a vague generalization.
Yeah, yeah, fair. Although though it is, now that you've kind of got me thinking about it, it is something that maybe makes the day two projection um, less fun, less interesting. I mean, part of the fun is going to be looking at what actually happens and then saying,
Mhm.
"Oh wow, look at how wrong I was." But this already kind of puts an asterisk out there of, well, almost certainly all of these, I bet, are probably going to be a little bigger. I don't know.
Mhm.
Add a percent to every single one of these. There we go. That's what we'll do. We'll just add 1% to all 12-ish of these, 15,
Mhm.
whatever it was, um, and then we'll cut the untracked that much, so it drops from 31 to 16, and that
Mhm.
maybe is closer.
Oh man, does but you have to have dealt with that with the top eight, right? In some way.
Yeah, well, I mean, in top eight, we can flip over there. Here's our top eight donut. I mean, there's only eight actual positions, right? So
Right.
we have to pare that down and um, not offer portions of seats. Now, on the spreadsheet, if you look at the column here, the percentage of seats, you can get the actual percentages. Cad Bane is projected to move upward to 23.5%, that type of thing.
Mhm.
But in the real world, we're just going to call that two. And
Mhm.
in fact, actually, this is maybe not the most fun version of this. I'm going to hit the top eight just like card instead of the donut. So this is not projecting the order they would be in a bracket. This is just those percentage rates and rounded to full digits. So our top eight then, we look at having Cad Bane, Grief. Sorry, read them in the order this is: Cad Bane, a wild card deck, Grief, Darth Vader, Ahsoka, Poe, Luke. Well, goofed on changing that to says Hero of Yavin instead of JTL for his abbreviation there, and then Boba Fett. So yeah,
Oh,
we.
interesting. So in the donut, we don't have a Boba Fett. We have
Oh, whoops! Did I goof in the going back and forth here?
there might be one
Yeah.
swap. Yeah.
Yep. You're right. Oh, that's what it was. I think I rounded the wrong direction. I'll have to make a corrected card because there's only the one CAD showing on the card. Oh, I'll have to fix
Oh,
that
interesting.
because
Okay.
realistically, I think it was the better call to say we're probably going to get two CADs
Hmm.
in the top eight. Um, so there we go. Let's look at the donut then. We got two
Okay.
CADs, a Luke, a Poe, a Vader JTL, Ahsoka, Grief, and just one wild card. Something that's
Mhm.
untracked is going to be wild.
So first thing I see looking at this is we are talking half the leaders. our new leaders, our Ash leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 are JTL leaders. And as you just said, on Boba Fett would have been the one on the chopping block. So if we pretend our other is Boba Fett versus a rando,
Mm-hmm.
then it is essentially half JTL pilot leaders and half Ash leaders.
Yeah, yeah. No, I thought that was very interesting looking at things as well, and potentially says something about the power levels of those sets, or maybe more particularly the sets in between. I know
Mhm.
um, Secrets was kind of regarded a little lower. A good chunk of Law, I think folks were pretty high on, but it hasn't
Mhm.
panned out on this. Though, if you go back to the Galactics projection um, for um, the spreadsheet, you can see that
Mhm.
Lando comes in at number 9,
Mhm.
just barely missing out behind Boba Fett there.
Mhm.
So um, there is a law leader that's trying to push up that direction, but
Mhm.
yeah, in the end, maybe doesn't get there.
Yeah, considering our first two places in the Galactics last year were both Legends of the Force leaders,
Hmm.
um, Kylo and Talzin. Do you feel like that side of things just kind of slid off because there wasn't more Force support kind of in the meta since then, and we lost the year one Force cards? Or
Yeah, I think there's some of that floating around, and especially on the force front, we lost, uh, force throw, which was a
Mhm.
strong enough and prevalent enough force card that it actually, of course, got suspended before rotation ever even happened.
Mhm.
So I think that, and the lack of further support for the force mechanic. I mean, yes, a handful of
Mhm.
force units, but not the mechanic. And of course, if you're going to use the mechanic at all, that really ties you into the lower health bases, which I think
Mhm.
that's also been a recurring theme even through the law meta and holding now, that the high HP bases do tend to be an issue. I mean, out of this projection, we've got what, 3 of them are on high HP,
Mhm.
above 30 bases there, and some of the stuff we were looking at for day 2, there were still noticeable boosts from some of the other higher HP ones, the Luke data vaults of both flavors,
Mhm.
the Mando Colossus, and that sort of thing. It does still seem to kind of stack that top end, even if
Right.
it's not quite half of the top 8 projection.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. Like if you look at it, so really our options for more health bases are Data Vaults, Colossus, and Lake Country. So we have the Lando Lake Country, which you said, like you said, made it was 9. Um, so bigger health base. We do have Ahsoka and Cad Bane not using Colossus, but neither of them have a good solution for the extra card, right? It tends to be
Yeah,
the control deck, so your Deidre and your Mando, who can handle getting the card back to make it worth it to have Colossus. Hmm. And so that just the cost of that one seems to be more, and especially with the new blue villainy cards, it seems like obviously Cad Bane wants to be blue, rather than going data vault.
yeah, yeah, and that is something to be said, I think, about the strength of the new blue cards in Ashes, and even some of the red cards as well, at the
Mhm.
villainy end of the spectrum, that they're pushing Cad Bane up a lot, and of course the strength of his leader abilities and so on. But they're pushing him up even though he's only got a 30 health kind of basic base. So, kind of playing that thought backward to your question about stuff that um, maybe we would predict is underplayed, is maybe this is the moment that a Dedra Colossus comes out and surprises people, with maybe a slightly weaker leader, uh, but the ability to still use those main deck cards and go the Colossus direction reasonably.
Mhm.
Maybe that's a dark horse out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. I mean, she gets that full new top end of Chimera, Ninth Sister, and Pre-Visual, right? So
Hmm.
that's some powerful endgame cards.
For sure. Okay. Well, before I even flip over to the next thing, I want to say, do you have a prediction then on what you think wins the whole event? And you know what? You're even willing to throw out two predictions if you want. You can throw out your just gut assumption, and you can throw out what your pick would be out of this projected top eight if you want.
Hmm. I mean, I feel like really my prediction is that Cad is not going to win.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so so based on that, I'm going to go with a. Why not? Let's go based on this top eight. Let's go with the Poe Data Vault. Um, I've never seen Poe ever perform quite as well as you expect him to,
Hmm.
based on how good of an ability he has. But I'm just going to say, yeah, Poe is going to take this one uh, from the top eight. If I'm going full meta, I'm going to say it's something that's not on your top 40 list.
Okay. Yeah.
I,
That wild
I-
card.
am I allowed to leave it at that? Let's leave it at a wild card. I think
Okay. Yeah.
like someone's going to come with something that people aren't expected and aren't ready for, and it's just going to change things up.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very reasonable assumption. And if there's anywhere that folks would want to debut something like that, it's at Galactics, right? So I think
Hmm.
I think there is a reasonably high chance that it happens.
What about for you?
Okay, so my gut thought here is honestly the wild card idea for that same concept, that just the size of players that are going to be coming to this and the competitive nature of it. I expect someone to come out as a with a true surprise.
Hmm.
Um, the let's say safe play, I guess, looking at this is probably Cad, but my personal kind of hope or personal pick out of looking at this projection is going to be Vader Yellow. It's just a
Hmm.
deck that I love, even though it's so against what I have loved in the past in other games. Somehow in SWU, there is something just so blissful about such a single-minded game plan that I
Hmm.
love. And obviously, it won the sector regional. Crap, I keep flipping those terms. Whichever one that was in Europe a couple months ago. So it's got the legs to hang. So let's see.
I believe Vader won the sector because Akbar won the regional.
There we go.
I
Yeah.
believe that's true.
Um, But I will say there's one other tab I've got here in this spreadsheet right now, the Monte Carlo tab. So um, that is kind of a fun one. This is what the odds tell us based on this breakdown. So short version of the Monte Carlo simulator is you take the projected top eight and then run ton of like sample brackets tournaments for it, right? Randomly seeded rather than trying to predict seeding and
Hmm.
whatever. But anyway, in the aggregate, it probably gets close. Um, and then uh, run each bracket with weighted coin flips for who wins in any particular match. and the weighting is based on the matchup matrix, the win rates that we were already looking at. Um, so then you can basically go ahead, condense all of that down into odds to win out of everything. So this is effectively what the computer says, what the algorithm says. Um, Monte Carlo odds are that Luke Skywalker JTL Data Vault takes it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 24%. So again, not huge out of the whole thing, but 24% odds on the title, 39% on the finals. Cad Bane Blue in second place, just barely slightly lower odds on the title, and essentially 50%. I mean 49, but you know worth rounding there. When it's already got two decks in the top eight, it's pretty much 50-50 odds that one of them makes it to the finals. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I thought that was interesting. Of course, this is a scenario that is much like the stage predictions. This is one that is not going to account for wild card well. Um, honestly, like we said about the day one to day two stage tending to weed out the untracked or wild card decks. On the flip side, I honestly think that by the time you hit a top eight, a wild card that has made that should probably be favored to win.
Mm.
If it's already made it through that gauntlet and is something that those other decks in the top eight have probably not prepared for.
Mm, that makes sense. So, what you're saying is statistics says we're going to have a Luke versus Cad final match.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's that's what what the raw number said. So let's
Yep.
hold me to it. Let's see if we get Luke versus Cad in the finals, which will doubly be entertaining after me harping on how bad he was tanking in the previous competitive season. So
That's true. Yeah. Well, that will be. Yeah, that'll be interesting to say. See.
well, good
Um,
deal.
yeah.
Well, there we go, folks. We've hit on a bunch of stuff so far. Um, a lot of charts, a lot of numbers. I know we thrown it out there. I tried to make it somewhat more interesting, at least by flipping to different ways to present this stuff to you all, listeners. I'm so sorry. It's even more dry than looking at the charts as we go. I hope you made it. Um, Alex, any parting thoughts about the tournament or words of wisdom for just galactic experience in general that you want to leave folks with?
I mean, if you're going, just remember at the end of the day, it's for fun, right? All of this, we're doing statistics. It's not quite gambling, but there is so much randomness in all of this. Just
Yeah,
honestly, every single deck, what you draw, all those things. Um, like this is not, for some people put a lot of their focus in their life into this game the last few years, and that's really cool. But at the end of the day, it's a game. We're all there to have fun, and whether it's doing side events, whether it's you know if you're like me and just shooting the last chance qualifier to see what happens, or if you're already qualified for day one and you know go in with the perspective that you're here for fun, enjoy life, enjoy the game, and come say hi.
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Try to keep the fun at the center of things. I do hope the line situation is better this year. I know there's going to be two prize walls, so I hope that helps with some of it. We'll see how register kind of side event registration and such is. Um, I know grinding for that for tickets and that sort of thing was a whole thing last year.
Mhm.
So I hope that does not take away from people's abilities to just go out and have a good
Mhm.
time. Um, other people, other shows I know have done the math on ticket acquisition and that type of thing. I admit I have not looked at it since I'm not able to go to Galactics this year. But I will say that playing in the open last year still got me enough tickets for what I like wanted out of the prize wall and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So I hope folks don't feel a pressure to just kind of play line simulator to grind for stuff, and that they actually, take time to play games while they're there,
Mhm.
and enjoy it that way.
Right. One element should be from last year to this year. Last year, that most of the event was run actually by Asmodee staff. This year, Fanfinity is doing a lot of the work. Fanfinity has a lot more experience running these kinds of events than Asmodee does, so that alone should help a lot with this line simulator type things.
Awesome. That is good. I look forward to hearing lots of stories about how much smoother it was this year.
Yeah, same.
Cool. There we go. Parting thought: take snacks with you. I know I just ate lunch not long ago, but just doing this podcast for this long, I'm already sitting here feeling a little woozy, thinking, you know what, Will, you could use some energy right now, and if you're playing in a very full day's worth of events, you're gonna need snacks too. So take
Mhm.
food.
It's
Nobody
true.
nobody needs anyone else being hangry there.
Yeah, protein bars are your friend.
Hmm. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Remember, here's the spiel again. Like, subscribe, check out the SWU.report website. Throw us a few dollars on coffee to cover the hosting and the software. I'm not looking for a profit here. I just want to cover at this point what's climbed to about, I don't know, 45, $50 worth a month, something like that. Um, and what else? Yeah, rate us on iTunes. I don't know. Thanks for coming.